Hello. How can hitting record make me so happy? I don't know, but I love my countdown. I am so glad to be with a group of, can I say gaggle? A gaggle of Patreon peeps who are joining me live on our August picnic. I thought it would be fun to have a picnic, relaxed, share a couple stories from my summer, share a few ideas. Some of you might be listening to this on the Ripples podcast, and welcome. If I talk about putting something in the chat here, I will definitely be compiling links, and so look for that in the liner notes. And then you might be watching the video on YouTube. Hello, hello. And I'll do the same. I'll try to put all the links there. We have a format that we tend to use for our time together that mimics our Ripples newsletters, Pebble, Boulder, Ponder. In this case, a Pebble is a resource that I'm using in my personal life or in my work. And then the Boulder is an activity that I'm using personally or professionally. And then the Ponder is the meat of our presentation. And today I'm going to be weaving together some stories of my summer, along with some articles and resources that I've come across in the past few months that I think might be helpful. And we started off with the here now, so we can move right into our Pebble. And this is a resource, and I want to have some links so that right as I talk about it, we have links for you. I'm seeing Whitney Houston. I want to dance with somebody. Gloria, that's an awesome comment. That's an awesome song. So, if you happen to see a little animated movie a few years ago called Inside Out, you will know that we made friends with a bunch of emotions that live inside the head of Riley, a girl who had just moved to a different place. And we got to know joy and sadness and anger and fear and disgust. Amazing movie. I think we did a whole session on talking about parts. It's so good. Well, the sequel came out this summer. Fabulous. I loved it so much. I've seen it twice. And there are some new emotions. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a clever little animated movie that is for children and adults 100%. And most of the first movie was inside the mind of this girl, and we got to know these emotions who took turns trying to run the control panel of her mind. And there were shenanigans and there were problems and what's going to happen. And it kind of seems like Joy is the star of the show, but it turns out that just like Harry Potter, it turns out Hermione's really the star of the Harry Potter movies. Another emotion ends up being the heroine and saves the day. Well, this movie has some new emotions because Riley has hit puberty, which is a hilarious twist on things. So anxiety was the emotion that we saw a lot of, and then embarrassment, ennui, which I will confess to you, several years ago, I was an adult there. I wrote a children's book. I think it was called A to Z of Death or something. It was this quirky little book that all these different ways that people died. It was this dark, and the E was ennui, but I didn't know what that word was, so I pronounced it ennui for many, many years. But the boredom, this character plays so well. And then envy makes an appearance, and then as a cold total bonus, there is this little character, this sweet old lady, nostalgia, that it keeps appearing just for a second. They're like, no, it's not time for you yet. She's like, okay. And I just feel certain we're going to see many more Inside Out movies. Let me put in the chat a link to the trailer. If you haven't seen it, I really highly recommend both movies as a way to understand ourselves and the world a little bit. I literally saw it twice, and I will confess to you that if you would have asked me before Memorial Day if anxiety is something that I deal with a lot, I would say nope, that's not my thing. I've dealt with clinical depression before. I've had my share of diagnoses. The DSM is my friend. But I wouldn't have said that anxiety is something that I have experienced a lot of. And probably 10 minutes into the appearance of the character anxiety, I was like, oh, is that what anxiety is? Oh my gosh. My anxiety person is uh part is very active in my brain a lot. And some of the ways that they taught us, if you're familiar with acceptance and commitment therapy. And if you're not, Google it. It's a fascinating way of kind of taking cognitive therapy sort of to the next level. Acceptance and commitment therapy. It's like a primer, um, also for really understanding a new way of approaching healing from stuff. So there is my pebble, Inside Out. If you've seen it and loved it, please mention that in the chat so that other people can see I'm not the only one. Um, all right. The boulder is an activity, and I had a different activity all lined up for us to share. And then as I was going through my list, I had remembered coming across a a Facebook reel. If you're on TikTok and not as much on Facebook, Reels is sort of the TikTok or um, uh, the other one, videos from what's the A one? Anyway, have been getting into Facebook Reels, and this one had this therapist who is quite popular and plays lots of things, quickly shared three sounds that stimulate our vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is one of the really uh, easiest ways for us to activate what's called our parasympathetic system. I don't like the words we use. Sympathetic system is the stress, get everything going and ready to fight, flee, freeze. And parasympathetic, I call it the peaceful system, is the one that says everything's okay. And one of the little interesting things, the vagus nerve runs along each side of the spine, is it's a relatively easy way to activate our everything's going to be. And the quick video, she shared three sounds that activate. Now, I'm going to dare the people who are with me live. You can stay muted, but I'm going to dare you to actually make some sounds with me. I'm going to commit fully to making some sounds now. The first one is very easy. It's just a hum where you hum to where you can feel it vibrating in your neck. So I'm going to hum for 5 seconds, and I'm going to invite you to hum for 5 seconds. On your mark, get set. I forgot to count. So hopefully you notice that that sort of vibrates a little bit here. The other one, very similar, and you'll recognize the sound om or aum from meditation practices, but that also does the same thing where it gets our neck vibrating just a little bit. So I'm going to om for 5 seconds. On your mark, get set. Om. Oh, this is being recorded for the podcast. I apologize. Some people are probably listening to this going, okay, this is a little woo woo for us. It's okay. And the last one is ha. It turns out that laughing, authentic, real laughter or artificial laughter that we just generate is a very good way to activate our vagus. So I'm going to do some ha's for 5 seconds. Ha ha ha. And I'm going to invite you to ha ha with me. On your mark, get set, go. Ha 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 ha. I love that some of you are doing it and I watched you giggling. Yay! Your vagus nerve has been stimulated. And uh, technically, the research says you need a few minutes of that in order to actually do a full activation that's going to signal to your system, ah, Paul is supposed to be in calm mode, so let's reverse the sympathetic system and kick into parasympathetic. But I found that just practicing for this session, that a few seconds certainly made me feel a lot better. So that, my friends, is our boulder. And with that, I would like to shift into ponderous mode. I spent some time this summer in Colorado, and many of you know that when people ask me where I live, I say that my body lives in Ohio and where I've lived for now over a decade. My heart still lives in Wisconsin, where I lived for 20 years. And for a week a year, my heart definitely lives in San Luis Obispo, where I go to Cal Poly every year because that's a special place. But my spirit home is definitely the Colorado Rockies. And I discovered first visited back when I was 16 years old with my family during a spring break trip to visit some neighbors that had moved out there. And in grad school, I started going out there as a sort of mini retreat. And I've been back many times. And the trip this year wasn't what I hoped for and wasn't what I was thinking it was going to be. And I made a video a little bit ago, I think, about some of the challenges that we can have when we think of things that we were hoping things to be a certain way or counting on things to be a certain way, that sometimes when we have a different experience, we really get knocked off pretty far. And it took me a little bit of time to recover from that. And one of the very first things that happened, I had a chance to go on a bike ride. I've been bringing my bike with me. I go out there primarily to hike. And the last 3 years, 2 or 3 years, I brought my bike, and it's been a fun little addition. And the very first bike ride, I messed up my bike seat. I was steep. I own a mountain bike, but I don't do a lot of literal mountain biking. And I was going on this bumpy up, down, down, down. And I think it was actually my water pack that I was wearing, my camelback on my back, that somehow jostled my seat. And so all the way down the mountain, I was sitting like this, and my seat was going straight up, and it was very poopy. And I was in the hotel room I'd stayed many times years ago. I hadn't stayed there recently. It was a little bit on the edge of Denver before I was going to go up into the high country for a few days. And I got back to my hotel room, and I was definitely in sort of a victim mindset. And I'm like, this is poopy, and how am I going to get my bike fixed? And no one's open on a Sunday, and I was going to go up into the country, and now what should I do? And should I delay? And I let myself feel that way for a little bit. And then I hopped into, okay, well, what's the thing I can do? Let's just see where the closest bike shop is. And it turns out that Google is a handy resource. I Google a bike shop, and it says zero point 0.2 miles, which I'm sure really means 20 or 200 miles. But sure enough, in the little Safeway grocery store that is walkable from my hotel around the corner, there is a bike shop that is, wait for it, open on Sundays. So I throw my bike on the back of my vehicle and drive the 2/10 of a mile over there and bring it in. And a really sweet, I have great fondness for bike technicians. There's just a lot of them have this energy that's just so earthy and friendly and warm. And he took really good care of me. Took him about 2 minutes to fix it. Comes back and says, "Oh, came undone. I tightened it up here. I did this, and oh, I noticed your brakes were a little loose, so I tightened them up." And he did like four things in that amount of time. And I said, "Thank you so much." And I was like, "Whatever he charges is going to be great." And I said, "What do I owe you?" And he's like, "Oh, nothing. That was nothing." And I fought him at first. I said, "Listen, I love that. I know you didn't spend a lot of time on it, but I know one of the good reasons that bike places often do that is the hope that people will come back to buy their bike or to for a big repair. And I am probably never going to be back because I don't live here." And he was so kind. He was so kind and said, "No, no, no. It really didn't take me any time at all. We're happy to help you out. Have a good vacation." And I walked out of there just feeling so much better about myself and about my vacation. That feeling, it turns out, feeling didn't last long because other shenanigans were to happen. But it helped me turn things around a little bit. But one of the articles that I looked over in my little snippets file that I thought it would be good to insert here, that ended up informing some of my time when I got up into the mountains and was still ended up being around people quite a bit. I don't know if you've ever heard of the word Sonder. I stumbled upon the word Sonder in a video that's a long 10-minute video that's amazing that I recommend highly, that comes out from the Reflections of Life. And this is a weird tangent, but Grateful Living, I've talked about before. Sister Joan, one of the folks that joins a lot of our calls, turned me on to this Grateful Living organization. They have these online classes and that meet once a week for a few weeks, or in some cases have a they call them pathways, where you get an email every day for 5 days for a week, and you have some little homework assignments. And they use these videos from this organization called Reflections of Life. And I'm going to put some links here in just a moment. And there was this 10-minute video called Soulfully Beautiful that focuses on this one gentleman as he talks about connecting with other people and the value of it. And he mentions the word Sonder. And the definition, realizing that everyone that you cross paths with, strangers on the street, have whole worlds going on in uh, in their lives. Like they have a whole world going on, and just like they're just playing this much of a part in your life, you're just a little tiny part in their life. And what to Sonder is to have this profound realization that every human soul that you cross paths with, every single character in your movie of life has a whole movie that's going on. And when he mentioned it, I immediately I didn't know that other people have that occasional realization, but I have definitely been in these moments where I'm sitting in a coffee shop, or I'm walking around a college campus where I've just landed to give a talk. And as I walk around, I'm realizing all these people have huge things going on, and they're not necessarily showing it on their face. So I went and did some digging on the word Sonder, and I found out that it was created by this guy, John Koenig, who has pulled together, he became a hobby of his to invent words that didn't exist that he thought should. And he created something called the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. And it's a book you can order and buy, and it's also a long Reddit thread, and he's got a website. And he, for some of the words, including the word Sonder, he also made little videos. So I've just put in the chat window, and if you're watching the recording, look in the notes. There's going to be all kinds of links. I put a link to the Reflections of Life webpage and the 10-minute video that I watched, that I'm telling you, so worth a listen. But then the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows and the YouTube link to the 2-minute video that he has, the profound feeling of realizing that everyone, including strangers passing in the street, has a life as complex as one's own, which they are constantly living despite one's personal lack of awareness of it. I just think that I am so glad that John thought to invent that word, because number one, I'm not alone. Other people have this experience. Number two, one of the things that ended up helping me on my time up in the high country, it wasn't as remote. I wasn't by myself as much as I usually am. I ended up encountering other people on hiking trails, other people on the bike trails, and the place that I have been staying the last few years is a little more touristy, and lots of people are around. They were annoying me at first, until I remembered this Sonder concept. And I then just found myself thinking about everyone else's movies, and that I was this little person on the bike path, or on the hiking path for a moment that I was passing, or the person on the bike trail that pulled over a little bit so the family could get by. And I was just like this to them, but they've got a whole movie, and my whole movie they don't really know anything about either, and don't really need to know. So that is Sonder. And how am I doing on time? Oh, we're doing okay. Um, I want to move. Yes. Let me tell you about Hayes. So the first day in Dillon, which is a town near Breckenridge, Keystone, Frisco, you might have heard of. Oh, Frisco, I'm wearing my Frisco tie-dye shirt. There was a farmer's market going on the first day that I got there. And so I scooted over there, not to buy ear corn, to see what candy sweets they had. And then it turns out there was an artist there selling these gorgeous, beautiful cards, and I bought several of them to write notes to some folks. And this card really stuck out to me because of that sort of haze, foggy mountain. And I had a couple good hikes, and then my third day of hiking, it was a little hazy like this. And it was beautiful, um, but it was unusual. I didn't understand what was going on. And that night, I discovered that not only were there awful fires going on up in Jasper, up in Canada, and over in Oregon, but the smoke from those two places and possibly others was gathering in the Colorado Rockies, and Denver was for a couple days had just one of the worst pollution, most polluted, got the pollution rating of the highest in the world at the peak day of this. And what I was witnessing was smoke. And the meaning that I attached to that was our planet is burning, creatures are dying, possibly people's lives are being upended by this. And I had a friend in Colorado who lost his house and scorched a huge dozens of acres that he had 3 years ago. And so it became this sad thing, this yucky thing. And the probably my last day there, I noticed this on the kitchen table of my hotel room. Um, and I realized that I had loved this look when I saw it on the card. And the first day of my hike, I found it to be beautiful and different and awe-inspiring. And then when I changed what it meant, I found that it was a saddening thing. And it left me thinking about the fact that so much of what happens to us is flavored by the meaning we ascribe, and that there's sometimes some wiggle room with that. And there was this other article that was on my snippets and idea list that is kind of a hard topic. And I said to the Tuesday night group, this is a little bit heavy, and this article's content might not be directly related to you. And then during our conversation, it turns out a couple people, this was a very relevant article. So I decided, yes, it was okay that this is a little bit heavy of topic, but it was an article from psyche.co, a British psychology website that I love. And it's about dementia. And the title of this article is a little bit, might catch you off guard. Dementia is not a death. For some, it marks a new beginning. And this article, which is fairly long, makes a really interesting case. Several people in it suggest that are familiar not only with treating people with dementia, but also researching dementia, that one of the biggest problems is not the disease or the condition. Depends. There's disease related to dementia, and then there's a condition. But it is the caregivers and the people who interact with a person with dementia. It is those folks' concerns and fears and attitude about dementia that often ends up shaping the experience that people with dementia have. And the articles suggest that there is this new approach that certain treatment facilities are using and researchers are looking at to treat dementia not as something bad, but it is a new era in somebody's life. And it is not an ending, it is like a new chapter. And I'll tell you what it reminded me of. Uh, I remember learning when I did a presentation for people who are sign language interpreters, and it was many moons ago, and it was when I first learned that cochlear implants are a more controversial thing in the deaf community than I would have guessed. To me, it looked like, oh, this is something that people who haven't been able to hear can hear again. And for some people, it is. But for other people who were either born deaf or became deaf early on, they see it as unnecessary, and for them, their deafness is a way of moving through the world, and they don't necessarily need it to be fixed. And again, I'm speaking out of that's not my community, and I hope I'm capturing that right. It's some people think and feel this way, other people think and feel this way. And for me, this idea that dementia could be looked at as something not to be maybe not to be longed for, but if it's visiting, if it's coming, if it's arriving, to say, okay, how can this be an interesting new chapter in my life or in this person's life that I care about? And if one can adopt that mindset, is there an upside? Um, or at least is there a way to remember that memories are not the only way to be connected to somebody? That um, interactions with people, physical touch, uh, finding out what people are wanting to talk about is like, okay, if you remember icebreakers where you have a little bingo sheet, you have to go around the room and find people that have this and say, okay, we're going to take that away and let me find out what I can get to know about this person that I've known for many years when some of these squares aren't available for us to connect with. And then zap me back to Colorado and saying, is there a different way to look at the fact that my precious mountains are hazy for a few days? And I don't necessarily have to take on all the heaviness, all the sadness of what that haze represents to coexist with it a little bit. Can I just see it for what it is? And it turns out the answer is at times in amounts that made it worthwhile. Hey, let's talk about happy songs before we put a lid on our time today, because I also stumbled upon this article that talked about a music psychologist coming up with the 10 happiest songs. And they came up with this um, way of measuring the beats, the lyrics, and they said these officially are the 10 songs guaranteed to make you happy. And I copied a couple links and I put the 10 songs in a Pandora list. And let me pause here for just a second and see if I can just paste and see what happens. Oh, wait, even the numbers transferred. For some reason last night the numbers didn't go with me. And it's kind of cool. Good Vibrations, James Brown, Pink, Get the Party Started, Uptown Girl, I Get Around by the Beach Boys, YMCA, love that. So these songs, and here's what happened 2 days ago, no, 3 days ago, Monday, I was wanting to put together these links for you. And I thought some of them are going to say, well, I'm on Spotify, not Pandora. So I thought someone has collected these 10 songs on a Spotify list. Let me just go find it really quick. So I open up my Spotify and I put the article title or something in. And sure enough, two results popped up. I go to look at the list. It's some other person's research that has come up with a different list. And at first, my first thought was, no, this ruins everything. And then I'm like, no, it's more songs that other people have determined are happy. And here's the cool thing. I am going to share these two other playlists. ABBA is in all three lists, but not the same song. One list has two ABBA songs, the other two each have one. They're all different. And um, Billy Joel, there's several people appear multiple times on the list, but I could only find one song that was actually repeated on these lists. So I um, don't know.
We lost your audio, Paul.
Am I back? Hi, let's start at the top. No, I'm just kidding. So this is the forever dilemma with me. Do I put in fresh batteries every time like you're supposed to so you don't have that happen and thus waste the energy, or do you just know that you might run out? And so thank you for tolerating that meditative moment of silence brought to you by making the world a better place. List of songs. Oh, so I want us to collect all these songs and listen to them. I'm going to be some of you may remember that we are going to be doing a scavenger hunt, a joyful scavenger hunt this fall. And over the course of several days, you're going to be looking for different things. And I will give you a hint that one of them is going to be to compile a list of songs that lift you up. And so this is your chance to start work on that list a little bit. Yes, yes, yes. So before we wind down, I want to tell you that my weird Colorado time, which definitely had some pleasant moments, and I had some physical stuff going on. I wasn't feeling 100%. I had some, the state of the world, which, today looks a little better than it did several weeks ago, but there was just a lot of, and not only is there all the in the world, but then of course, I think it's my job to fix it all. So like, okay, by the time I get back from Colorado, I have to have the answer to give everyone. No, I don't, but I add that pressure to myself. And the fires were weighing on me, the fact that I was not getting some of the solitude I wanted. And one of the fun things I got to do, I don't know if I've told you all this, that last summer, the first day I was in Colorado, I had dinner in a restaurant, and a family walked in, and the boy was wearing a Bucky Badger t-shirt. And I said, Bucky Badger. And I started chatting with them, and they are friends of mine to this day. We ended up snapping a picture. We met up for dinner the last night that they were in town. And Jessica is actually a Patreon peep. She was on the Tuesday night call, and she's been helping me create some magic for the joyful scavenger hunt that we have coming up later this fall. And she was the one that told me something she and her family had done was from the Dillon Frisco area where I was staying, that you can take a shuttle up to Vail Pass, which is 30 miles away and much higher in elevation. And there's a bike path where they rent a bike, or in my case, it's 30 bucks. They'll just take you and your bike up there and drop you off at the rest area. And it's 12 miles down to Frisco, and it's all downhill. And then it's another 6 miles to get back to my hotel. And I had never done it because it's right along the interstate corridor. And the story in my head is that didn't come all this way to be next to a interstate. But they said you very rarely actually hear the interstate noise, and you're often well below. The interstate is actually up above, and you're down, and it looks like you're in a forest. And sure enough, so I did that. I was wrapping up with getting some lunch in Frisco, and I went to my favorite little store in Frisco, which I think is called Sunny Side Up, something sunny, that is a little artist studio. You can actually come in there and make crafts with your kids or bring in a party. But it's run by artists. And I always try to buy something from the store. And I was walking through, and I wasn't seeing anything that spoke to me. And then I saw a quote that was painted on or printed on a pair of socks, and I loved. And I was like, I don't know that I need this on a pair of socks, but I'm going to buy something to support them. And then as I head towards the register, I found um, I found it printed, and it says, it's all connected, your gifts, your circumstances, your journey. None of it is by chance. Embrace it. It's molding you. And it made me think of the people, the fires, the bike repair, all the things that I liked about my trip and the things I didn't like about the trip. It's all connected, your gifts, your circumstances, your journey. None of it is by chance. Embrace it. It's molding you. Let me take just a second to find, I hadn't thought to write that down. And of course, the Tuesday night folks were like, put that in the chat. And I was like, that's reasonable. Um, so I'll tell you the last thing I did when I wrapped up my time in Colorado was to go to a Safeway grocery store and to buy a $100 gift certificate. And I wrote a note to the folks in that bike shop that was down in Littleton and thanked the person and the staff for taking good care of me and all the other people. And I told them that they were in a shopping center where there was a Safeway grocery store right next door, a couple stores down. And I said, I'm offering you this gift certificate that I want you to put somewhere that all the staff knows where it is, and that anyone who's having a bad day, has dealt with a grumpy customer or a grumpy colleague, can take it and go next door and just walk through the aisles and think happy thoughts and find a healthy treat, a decadent treat, some flowers, whatever you need to improve your day. And I sent it off. I will never know. Did they get it? Did they think it's weird? Is somebody spending it? I trust that it's all connected. Your gifts, your circumstances, your journey, none of it is by chance. Embrace it. It's molding you. I'm going to end our recorded time here. I want to thank you so much for watching this live or watching this recorded or listening to this. Please know that anytime I have to spend with people in person or know that they're creating some ripples by sharing these ideas with others, it's awesome. And with that, I'm going to remove my spotlight. And if your video is on and you don't mind, if you could wave to the camera, I will end the recording. Keep waving because I'm pressing the wrong button.